what I'm going to do today is I'm going to rewire the back end on here. The wiring on this truck was pretty appalling. It had a new wiring loom in it, but it had just been thrown in and cable tied underneath, and there was no proper protection in it. And there is some box section up under here where the wires run, but rather than running the wires by drilling a hole into the box section, what they'd actually done is just looped under it and then into the box section, and it was a right mess. And basically where any wires go through the bodywork, they just drilled a hole and pushed the wires through. If you've got a rough edge, what it's going to end up doing, it's going to end up cutting the cable. So I wasn't very happy with that. And also where they had drilled holes, there was no paint on anything properly. So again, it was just going to promote corrosion and rust. So what I've done is I've gone and opened out these holes, and I've painted them, and I'm going to fit grommets, and then I'm going to rewire everything. You can see here I was painting up inside this box section before, so because I didn't want the paint to come out, what I did was just got some blue tack here and pushed the blue tack into these holes in the body. So hopefully that's, well, not hopefully, it has done. It's just stopped any of the paint leaking from outside the box section. So I've actually found that that's maybe quite a good tip, to use blue tack for plugging holes. The other thing that I found that works well is, you're seeing those little ear defenders, those little round squishy buds that you put in your ears to reduce noise. If you've got holes that you want to plug because you're painting or something, get some of them earbuds, bung them into the hole, and then they expand again, and yeah, again they make a good seal against paint and stuff like that. So I've got to decide which of these grommets fits in here, and I think it's that one. Something else I've noticed on here is a lot of these connections on this truck, they don't have a ground connection. They only have like these wires here. There's two wires going to this lamp, and they one of them is a brake light and the other one is the side lights. But I know that the car body is earthed, and you can, you know, a lot of automotive things use the body as a return, but it's not always particularly effective, that, and you're always getting faults on indicators. You know, you're behind a truck or something, and you see that rather than when the indicators are flashing, you tend to see the brake lights or the side lights kind of blinking on and off in sympathy to it. And what usually causes that is some kind of an earth fault, because you know, there's a bad connection. They're relying on the bodywork or something like that to get to be the ground wire. And again, I've noticed that there is no earths on anything. So I think what I will do is I'm going to make a point. I'm going to run an earth wire from the back of some of these lamps, and I'm going to run it and bolt it to one of the chassis members underneath, because I found that this body, there's no electrical connection. Although it's bolted to the chassis, there is no electrical connections to the chassis. And you know, the bolts are kind of quite long bolts. They're sat on things like wooden packers. They may not be very effective, so I think the correct thing to do, a much better thing to do, will be to put some separate dedicated grounds on. So we'll do that as well. Ugh. Just struggling to get these wires through the grommets. I wanted them to be a tight fit, and yeah, they are. Now the wiring protection's quite funny on here. You see this black tubing. Looking at it, it looks like a material, like a webbing or something like that, but it just looks as though it may be covered in, I don't know, it's rubberised or maybe covered in bitumen or something like that. So yeah, they look quite good, don't they? So I think the wiring looked like that before. That's what it was like. And then we've got the wires up under here that we need to connect back up, and I did put some marks of red tape on there. So right, you can see I'm really squashed in here, aren't I? So we've done one. I'm going to try and do the one on the other side of the truck now, and I don't think I'm going to have to bring you in for that. I don't think you'll be able to see me because I'm kind of screwed up underneath the truck and contorting myself to reach anything. I'll see if I can put the camera in there. Maybe you can laugh at me. I'm going in. This is, I don't know, you might call it a rear cross member. It's at the back of the bed of the truck, and you can see I can get my hand up in here. Now previously the wiring, I'll see if I can grab it. The way that the wiring was previously installed, it was just pushed up under like that, and I wasn't happy with it. It was unsatisfactory. It was hanging down. They had bothered to put it in some conduit, but as you can see, everything is held together with lots of insulation tape, and yeah, I'm not happy with that. I like to do a better job than that. So rather than just having this wiring pushed into the rear crossmember like that and hanging down and held in with cable ties, it looked a mess. I wasn't happy with that. What I've done is I've drilled a hole there in the rear crossmember. I've primed it and put a top coat of paint on it. And what I've got to do now is I'm going to fit a grommet into there, and then we're going to put this conduit into there, and then we're going to run the wiring inside this box in a flexible conduit as well. So that should all be much more satisfactory, shouldn't it? So a lot of you American guys, when you're working underneath your cars, you seem to use these car creepers, and yeah, I'm using one as well at the moment, but I don't know, I'm not completely sold on them. They seem pretty awkward to use, and everything's in your face, and oh, I don't know. I'm just surprised how popular they are when you, like I say, when you look at the American automotive videos. So maybe if you're a professional mechanic in America or you use car creepers, I don't know, convince me how good they are, because yeah, I'm not having a great time at the moment. You can see I'm wearing the stupid red hat, and that's because my girly long hair tends to get tangled in the wheels, and I once spent several days trapped under here because my hair had got tangled up, and it was like that. Oh, what was that video? One Day Later or something, where he had to cut his own arm off with a hacksaw or something with a penknife. Well, this was worse. Ah! Ooh. Where did that go? Oh, I don't know. Find another one. Ooh. Bloody hell. I knew that bloody thing was going to hit me on the head. This is hard work, this. Kind of, you know what it's like working with bent elbows? You can't put any force on anything, can you? And it's not that I'm old and feeble at all. Oh, I think that's done it. I think that was hard work, though. Okay, so that's a grommet in the rear chassis member that it's just took me 20 minutes to install. Put my little pinky through it there. I nearly got my finger stuck then. That would have been embarrassing, wouldn't it? So in theory we should be able to get this this flexible conduit into there. Well, that was the plan anyway. You don't actually have to cut the insulation all the way through. You just have to put a line on the outside of it, a score, and then basically it just creates a weakness in the plastic, and when you pull it, it just breaks at that point. So I'm not cutting all the way through the insulation, I'm just scoring it. So we've finally got a couple of cores of black wire here. I think this looks like it's about 2.5mm square. So we're going to run 2 ground wires, and I think what I'll do is I might fix one end onto the chassis first, because I'm going to use the same chassis earth point to ground both wires. I don't think we need to do a particularly big lug, but it's going to be a yellow lug to get the bolt on we want. Okay, here's an imperial bolt. So what have we got that'll fit that? Sure, that'll be good enough to ground them out. Oh yeah, made for the job, so that's what we will do. Okay, so we've drilled the hole and we've given it a good scrape round so we can get a connection to the chassis, and now we can fit our lug. This bolt is a little bit longer than it needs to be, but I think it'll be okay. So there's our bolt through with a washer. Here's our ground lug. Here's another washer. I'm going to put a lock washer on. And now finally our nut. Too much detail, eh? When I've done this, I'll touch it up with paint afterwards, where I've scraped away at the metal. We'll touch that up. Is it on or off? That's on. And I've done my usual thing, getting the wrong spanner. So there's our ground wire installed to the chassis. What we're going to do is we're going to put a drip loop on the cable. We're going to thread it into this flexible conduit, and then this flexible conduit needs to be, can you see it, needs to be pushed through this hole in this rear cross member, and then hopefully we're on the home run then for wiring everything up. Oh well. Just putting a couple of cable ties on, try and hold everything in place. So I'm not sure what type of lights this vehicle would have been originally fitted with. I'm guessing it would have had a combined lamp that did indicating left and right, and also brake lights and stop lights, because a lot of American cars seem to have these tail lights that just flash red. But obviously we don't have that in the UK. We have an orange coloured turn indicator. So this lamp here has been fitted afterwards, and it hasn't been particularly well wired, and unfortunately there isn't a particularly easy way to get the wiring to this lamp. It has to kind of be pushed through a little gap in some steel work, and there's no way to get a drill in or a grommet to do it properly. So I'm just going to try to protect the wire as well as I can. So what we're going to do is we're going to just slip over some of this flexible conduit. It won't protect the cable for its entire journey, but it should do, should help. That seems to be going. Okay, so we've got a couple of black wires hanging down here now. So we've got this black wire here is the one that we installed to the bolt on the chassis. So that's going to be our main ground, if you like, our ground return. And we're going to fix that ground return to the back of this piece of metal here, which is feeding the brake light and the side light. And then we're going to connect this other black wire to it on the same crimp, and that's going to go up to the turn indicator. So that is the plan. Is that about the right length, or shall we put a bit more on it? Right, there's our ground, our primary ground. Now we'll crimp on the wire to the turn indicator. I'll put a crimp on it. And I've got a new bolt on here because the one that I took out was a bit crappy. And like all the bolts on this vehicle, I'm going to assemble it with some Never-Sees on it. I'm just going to crimp on the wire to the turn indicator, and then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and give this a try, because all the wiring under here was in a bit of a rat's nest, and it was joined multiple times, and there's bits of insulation tape everywhere being used to colour code what the wires were, but because there were so many bits of insulation tape everywhere, I think it would be quite easy to squeezing the crimp pliers, it would be quite easy to get it wrong. So I think, what is that phrase, slowly catch your monkey? I think what we'll do is we'll bring everything in one circuit at a time. I think that's probably the best way to do it. So there's our right turn signal, so if everything's wired up now, our right indicator should be flashing. So the front's okay and the back's okay, so I'm going to take that as a pass. So we've got this big splice here with multicoloured wires coming out of it, and it looks like we've got two purples joined together, and I'm thinking that because one's long and one's short, one went to the left hand side of the vehicle and one went to the right hand side of the vehicle, so these are either going to be a brake light or it's going to be a side light. I'm not sure which it is. Maybe I can trace it out and see if we can figure it out. But it's all jammed up under this tape here, so I'm going to pull that tape off next and see what we can see. Okay, so here's our orange wire, and we've unwrapped all the insulation tape off it, and you can see that somebody's grafted in these two purple wires, and but it's actually being fed from an orange wire here. I don't know whether or not this orange wire is going to be it's either a brake light, it's either a brake signal, or it's a side light. It's one of the two, not sure which. So we've got to sort this out anyway, because it's you can see copper exposed, and the wires aren't actually long enough. So we've got to sort this out anyway, because it's a mess. I don't think I've actually got any, I haven't got any orange wire, so what I think we're going to have to do is, not getting any orange wire, I've only got that black wire, but I have at least got some, I don't know, some heat shrink, coloured heat shrink. So what I think I will do is I'll use black wire, but every so often I'll put a little orange tracer on it, so hopefully that'll allow us to identify it, or somebody else to identify it when I'm dead. Okay, so we've spliced into our orange mystery circuit there, and what I did was I used a large crimp to join all three wires together, and then I covered that crimp with an adhesive heat shrink, so that should keep any water out of the connection, hopefully. So I've connected up the last two wires, and let there be light. So here we've got the rear light on the passenger side, and you can see that's glowing relatively dimly, so that looks like a side light to me. And then if you look over to the other side of the vehicle there, you can see the other side light is illuminated, so that's a good sign. So what we've got to do now is we've got to try the brake lights, haven't we? I'm not sure if I'll be able to test them very easily, in fact, because I don't think I'm going to see them. Perhaps I can, yeah, I know what I'll do. I'll turn all the lights off in the garage, which is going to be a recipe for disaster, isn't it? I'll turn the lights off in the garage and then try standing on the brake pedal. Well, I noticed the brake lights seem to be working and the passenger side indicator works, but the driver's side rear indicator doesn't work. But and the obvious fault, yeah, and the obvious fault is I forgot to connect up the tail light because I've rewired it. So we'll connect that up, but I think I'm going to call that job done. So as always, thanks for watching. Hope to see you again very soon. Bye for now.